Well, here's my question. If you're learning apologetics, what are you learning apologetics in order to accomplish?
Those are to be able to help to evangelize and just be able to calmly speak and defend Christ when I'm against opposition of my faith.
Right. That's what I would imagine. So you're going to be confronting people who have challenges to Christianity. Maybe they don't believe in God, for example, and they have reasons for it and reasons why they don't think that Christianity is true. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay,
sir. Yeah.
So then why would it not be a good idea to read some of those kind of people under a controlled set of circumstances or watch videos or something like that, rather than wait until you're kind of in face-to-face encounter? If you want to be able to answer the other side, you need to understand what the other side has to say. And if you get to a point where you can take the best that the other side throws at you and you can see what's wrong with it and how you can respond to it, that's the best scenario entirely. If you are brand new to apologetics, I don't think it's good to start watching a bunch of atheist videos. That's not the time to face atheists. The best arguments. Sam Harris, one person you mentioned, he's one of the best. He's
Right.
one of the brightest. He's one of the most articulate. He's one of the best in a certain sense that the other side has to offer. That's not where you start. If you want to start, you start at a different level. So when we have taken groups of students to, say, to Berkeley on an apologetics road trip, we've had first an atheist role play by a Christian in the group, so they are able to interact with the Christian who's pretending to be an atheist, so it's a safer environment. Although a lot of times we start out with that and they don't realize the Christian isn't an atheist. It's meant to shake them up a little bit. Then they go through training on the kinds of arguments that are offered, and here's how they respond to them. And so you begin inoculating the students, and by application, anyone who is learning these things to begin with. You get their arguments, you get the responses, and you see how their arguments don't work. Okay? And then once you get more of that foundational stuff, then you can go out as a second stage of learning and start listening to, say, debates between Christians and atheists. Frank Turek has debated quite a number of them. William Lane Craig, obviously our poster boy in a certain sense. He's debated everybody, and he does a superb job, and he's very clear, and he's very sharp, and he's been doing this for decades. So then you can see how their best guys and our best guys interact. And what ends up happening, I think, in many, many, many cases, is that when you see these debates, it's surprising how little the other side has. And you think, oh my gosh, is that the best he can do? And then you hear the response from the Christian, which seems fully adequate. And I've listened to a lot of people tell me when they first started watching these debates how underwhelmed they were with the response that the non-Christian had. They were just, is that it? And in fact, I mean, not to wave my own flag, but when I did a debate at University of Calgary, and I won't even give the name of the person I debated, but he's a professor there. Afterwards, the atheists, the so-called free thinking society, came up to me and apologized to me for their person. They said, "I'm sorry, we wish we'd have gotten somebody better for you." Because it turned out to be a very one-sided discussion. It was a debate on moral relativism versus moral objectivism. And it did not go well for my opponent, but I think principally because he just had the wrong side. And the reasons for objectivism are so powerful, and the reasons against it are so weak. But so now notice the stages. First, you see our side. You're learning the evidences for our side. Then you watch atheists debating Christians, and then you see how that interaction takes place. This helps you to see how these things are actually played out. And then then you can go and just listen to podcasts by atheists, because now you're further along, and you can ask yourself, now, if that atheist were talking to me and he gives this argument, how would I deal with that? What would be a way around that? How would I address that particular challenge? Something like that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so it's basic, I think, basic education for growing in your ability to face challenges. And not just atheists. I think there are a whole host of ideas that you may encounter that you want to get better at dealing with, or maybe you'll have your own questions about. And just expanding is, I think, a good thing. This is the best way to learn how to deal with any circumstance like that. You get booked up, you face the real McCoy, and you learn how to deal with it. Now, I had a caller a little while ago in this hour that mentioned Bob Passantino. The Passantinos had written some material about something she was asking about. Well, Bob Passantino, I actually, when I'm rewriting Tactics right now, I just cited Bob for an idea that he had, and I thought it was really a good one. And what I said in this edition that I'm making, in the second edition of Tactics, is I said, Bob said once, if you have the truth, if Christians have the truth, then anybody who is pushing back or objecting or thinking we're wrong there's going to be a fly in the ointment somewhere in their point of view. Even if it sounds good at first, there still is going to be something wrong with it. There's going to be a misstep somewhere. There's going to be a non sequitur. There's going to be a stray fact that they don't have right. Something's going to be wrong. And he said, just keep looking for it, and you'll eventually find it. And that was his habit, and I've been in the same habit. That is, when you hear lots of times, Robert, when you hear the other side make their point, just like it says in Proverbs, the first person who pleads their case seems just until another comes and examines him. In the same way, when these folks make their point right out, it sounds like it makes a lot of sense initially. Then you start thinking about it. And if you use the Columbo tactic or tactical game plan, you begin probing with questions. And when you start probing with questions, you get them to lay more details out on the table. And then you realize, boy, that idea does not sound as good now after they're being cross-examined in a gentle way than it did before. That fly in the ointment becomes evident, but it isn't always immediately evident, especially if you're just getting into this kind of thing. And once you can, you hear the best arguments from the other side, then and you can address them. And listen, maybe when we do this, it isn't like we figure this out on our own. Okay, now I'll try to figure it out. No, we have a team. And so we can go to each other. And so here's Sam Harris. He's trying to work this thing out where you can get morality without God. And we can have objective morality without God. Wow. I didn't think you could do that. As a Christian, we're saying this. Well, here he is. And then he gives a way of characterizing it that sounds kind of persuasive. And maybe you don't know how to deal with that. Okay, well, let me tap somebody else out, and see what they think of that. And if you get and I actually talked about Sam Harris's approach, was it last week, Amy, or maybe the week before last? I can't remember. But there is a huge fly in his ointment when he is trying to make a case for objective morality without God. He can get objective criterion, but he's not getting objective criterion for bona fide morality without God. He's cheating is the way it works. But the point I'm making is sometimes you don't see it the first time around, and you got to tap somebody else out. And then somebody else on the team, and when I say the team, I mean the Christian team, the broadest team, you
Right.
read a book or you make a phone call or you go to a website or you call our show or whatever, then you see somebody else has addressed that. William Lane Craig does a lot of this. You go to his website, you say, oh, he's addressed that. Then he gives the rationale. Then you go, oh, that's what's wrong with that point of view. And now you're in a better position to address it next time. So when I got my master's degree in philosophy under J.P. Moreland at Talbot, it took me a long time to get it, but we regularly read philosophers on the other side because they were the best proponents of the other side's view. And so we wanted to make sure we really understood their side, regardless of what the broader issue happened to be. We read those guys. And this is what I recommend too. Let's read the other side. You know who tells you not to read the other side? Mormons tell you not to read. I should say the Mormon Church tells the Mormon people not to read the other side. Whenever I find out that some group tells their people don't read people who disagree with you, I realize that they don't have a good case. They can't defend their own view. They're too frightened of opposing views that might sound persuasive. And so what they do is they just cut their people off. They don't allow them to read these other viewpoints because they might be persuaded. Well, they're only going to be persuaded if the other viewpoints are really good and our viewpoints are really bad.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, a long way around to say the same thing. I think that our bench is really deep, Robert. We have tremendous players on our bench. There isn't hardly an issue that has ever been brought up. I mean, there are some boutique issues that are coming up now about gender dysphoria and stuff, and we got to work it out. But most of the things have been around for a long time, and the people on our bench have done a really good job academically, faithfully, fairly dealing with the issue and coming up with great responses that demonstrate the foolishness of the opposing view and demonstrate the truth of Christianity. So, we're in a good place.
Good to know. Good to hear.
Okay, Robert, you keep up the good work yourself, okay?
Thank you. Blessings to your ministry. I do appreciate you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Glad to help out. Yep, there you go. If you have the truth and you have good reason to believe the truth that you think you have, you do not need to fear the opposition. The opposition is going to do one of two things. It's going to help you understand the truth more clearly, or it's going to help you see maybe something where you messed up. And sometimes we do mess up, and then we have to make adjustments, okay? That's the value of peer review.